Welcome to the Heart of Money podcast, where we discuss the personal and emotional elements of money and the impact that money has on every area of your life. I'm Austin Black, a personal finance coach that helps couples overcome their fear and frustration of financial management so they can take complete control of their money. What started as a desire to learn the fundamentals of money management has turned into a passion for helping couples work together to achieve financial success and strengthen their relationship with each other. Whether you're looking for the best strategies to manage your money as a couple, or you're tired of struggling to gain traction and want to overcome the fear and frustration associated with finances, I'm here to help, and this show is for you. Ready to learn more? Then let's talk about the heart of money. Well, most people think that in order to become debt-free, have financial security, get anywhere in life with your money, you have to either make a lot of it or spend very little of it. And the reality is that neither one of those are completely true. In fact, I've got a training I'm going to walk you through called the Financial Freedom Blueprint that's going to show you how to become debt-free and have financial security without the need for a huge income or restrictive lifestyle. I'm offering this training live once a month. So head on over to freedommoneycoach.com/training and you can get signed up for free. In this training, I'm going to walk you through the exact strategies that I teach my clients on how to get on the same page with their spouse, create a plan for their money, and accomplish their financial goals through behavior management. It's going to be so much fun. You're going to learn a ton. You're going to walk away inspired, motivated, and encouraged to achieve your financial goals this year. So head on over to freedommoneycoach.com/training. Hey folks, welcome back to the Heart of Money, episode 94. I am your host, Austin Black, joined by the fun, witty, good-looking, under the right lighting, with careful glasses, Mr. Bob Wessler. How are you this evening, Bob?
I feel effervescent over here. I'm just glowing. It should be a filter. They should give us more options with these
especially for
cameras, especially for me. Especially for me. I could either do the white light and make it look like I'm really
I just
glowing.
realized there's a reason that we have more views on podcast than YouTube. Just saying.
Yeah. If we turned your video off, those numbers would go through the roof. But
they would.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
They would indeed. Well, man, it's been a summer, hasn't it?
Yes, we were just talking about that.
It's been a summer.
It has been a summer.
It's been a hot summer. It's been an expensive summer. It's been a fun summer for some of us. I got to tell you, though, I had such a great time last month. I went to this concert, and it was the absolute best concert I've ever been to.
Blue's Clues?
No.
Blippi?
No, it's even better than that.
Dora?
This concert cost me 45 cents to attend.
I am on the edge of my seat, figuratively.
Just figuratively?
Yes, just figuratively.
Yeah, it was. I've never been to such a cool concert for that amount of money. It was awesome.
It was a steal.
It was a steal, yeah, a whole 45 cents, and there I was.
Was that a drill bit cost that you drilled the hole through the wood slat to look at it from the other side of the?
No, it was 50 cent and Nickelback.
50 cent Nickelback. Wow, you are in on these jokes, man. Speaking of 50 Cent and Nickelback, did you hear the AI compilation for the new country song? And this is no joke. No joke. I mean, it is a joke.
It is a joke.
It is a joke.
Funny.
It's not funny. It's somebody took 50 Cent's lyrics and put it in country style. AI just ripped it off of something. They put a country twang to a song I've heard before. See, and now I'm glowing. It's amazing. Rapture's about to happen.
Blinding is what you are.
Blinding, that's right. And it's coming from behind me, not the front of me this time. Anyway, so yeah, it was an AI creation of a country song, and AI, whatever, GPT or whoever that did it, just ripped off 50 Cent and put it
That's funny.
with a country
I'm sure it sounds
sound.
awful, but that's funny.
It does. I mean, it's almost right up there with Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, and throwing it in as a rap song. I mean,
Had to send it to me.
I don't know. My wife had it on some podcast, and it was all of a sudden it was like, I've heard this before. Oh yeah, yeah. It's 50 Cent. This is weird.
This is weird.
It's weird. So your 45-cent concert.
Mm-hmm.
It's good you got a Nickelback.
Yeah, exactly. Or probably would have been worth it for just 50 cents.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of them, so, you know. I actually, and all joking aside, I do like Nickelback.
I was gonna say, do you even know who 50 Cent is?
I could care less who 50 Cent is, but I do like Nickelback.
You probably like Hanson too, don't you?
Hansel and Gretel? No, I haven't talked to them lately.
That's right. Just follow the breadcrumbs.
Exactly. You know, wind up at the Fox's house. You can tell we got little kids.
Yeah.
Good times, good times.
I just talked to a guy for dad jokes. We share them back and forth all the time.
I bet it's you know, a laughing fest.
It's oh, that one's good. Oh, that one's horrible. Oh, that don't. Yeah, you should tell that one again because it's that bad.
I got some more I'll save for next time for you.
Okay.
So, because I know that people think that we actually talk about money on this show,
Do we?
not just
Yes.
cheap concerts. So we probably should, you know, get to the main event. That's going to be worth more than 45 cents. I can promise you. So
we charge for this podcast now. We charge. Where are my royalties?
We do need sponsors.
We do need sponsors.
We could charge.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you know anyone that wants to give, you know, 50 cents, we would gladly take it and ask for more.
We'll take 2 cents. That's what we give.
Well, it depends upon who it's from.
Yeah. I found a penny earlier today at the gas station.
Yeah, that's about what it's worth.
That's, yep. Half that.
For those of you who are still tuned in, we are going to have a fun conversation this morning, whenever you listen to this, midday, every day. And Bob is nervous about this conversation. I don't know why, because he shouldn't be nervous.
No, I'm just glowing.
This is a very natural conversation to have.
Of course it is.
Is that why you're so nervous? Because this is so normal?
Sorry, you fell out of my ear. What was that about?
You cut out on me. I couldn't hear your face.
That's right. You couldn't hear my face. What?
So, Bob, do you want to tee this off, or do you want me to set the stage for you?
Watermelon. Seriously. This conversation is not going to happen. I am working real hard at this.
For those of you listening,
Unbelievable.
Bob cannot keep his headphones in his ears.
I can't keep my head on my shoulders.
If he can't hear himself, he can't talk about anything.
That's right. If I can't hear Austin, everything is good in my world. But anyway, enough about Austin. Let's talk about me. What is it that you wanted to get me to expound on?
I can tee you up, or you can set the stage, whichever you prefer.
You can tee me off, or welcome to my last ever show. Anyway, go right ahead.
Okay. So, apparently, Bob, I'm going to find out why you're so nervous, because I don't even know, what you've done wrong that would make you nervous, but this would be interesting.
It's not wrong. It's what I've done right. It might be the shorter list.
That'll be the shocker, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's two types of people in a relationship. Male and female. Come on. Come into this. Come on. Help me out here.
Yeah.
And typically, one of those is what we would call a nerd, and one is called a free spirit. Have you heard of those sayings and those phrases?
Are you asking me? I tend to be a nerdy free spirit.
I am asking you if you are a nerdy free spirit or a free-spirited nerd.
Apparently, my daughter is a really free spirit, or she just doesn't know what she's doing on my phone when she buys things without my knowledge of her doing it. My son is also a free spirit when he uses an entire bottle of shampoo in the bathtub. Mm-hmm. Sam's Club style bottle of shampoo. Yeah. like a,
I
tote.
don't think that's the same free spirit that we're talking about.
Oh, I would say that they could be equitable.
Equitable.
Free spirit.
That's a interesting term. Can you expound?
Equitable. Well, a free spirit, let's put it this way. A nerd knows that they only need a few pumps of soap in a bathtub to make the bubbles. A free spirit says, psh, we'll just use the whole bottle. That's right. How viscous can this
a
tub
nerd
be?
will count the bubbles. A free spirit will make as many as possible.
That's right.
Well, the good news is that both of those can get along so well together in a marriage, in a relationship, in managing money, but it's not always easy, is it, Bob?
Well, one of them ends up in the corner most of the time. So, we're not talking about the kids anymore. We're talking about, yeah.
Is this a personal experience?
Yes, as of 15 minutes ago, we've talked about this.
No, I mean for you.
For me in the corner?
Because you instantly went there.
Well, I was actually referring to the kids because I was just trying to be funny, and maybe I should have headed the corner after that joke and just shut it down now.
Well.
That was you had the dad joke.
That wasn't even a dad joke. That was just bad.
Yes, that's what dad jokes are. Hardly punny.
You're not helping this situation.
I know. We've got a good count going on this clock, and we're going to cut the first 20 minutes of it. So.
We might have to at this rate.
That's right.
So, to get serious.
Dang it.
Yeah. Now, there's a dynamic within marriage that we all encounter and that affects our money. And it's not always easy to deal with, especially whenever it's not understood and not handled properly. And Bob, this is something that I teach in my coaching program that I know you and I deal with every single one of our clients, that we deal with within our own marriages. This is just it's a norm that many couples don't know about, and that's what makes it so difficult to get around. Because there's, like we said before, there's two personalities within the marriage. There's your nerd, there's your free spirit. And, without going into all the intricacies of what each one of these personalities really entails and embodies and is motivated by, the general course of action is the free spirit is more likely to be willing to spend money, and the nerd is more likely willing to save money. And whenever you have a spender and a saver that, get together, there could be some conflict. There could be some, maybe even power struggle at times. Then there's definitely going to be communication obstacles to get over, to get on the same page with each other. So tonight, I think it's good to just talk about how do these two people, how do they manage their money together? How do they balance the saving and the spending? I know that we won't get in depth because, like I say, this is what we cover in the coaching for couples. But for someone to just understand the basics of this and to learn how they can balance that relationship within their marriage, I think is really, really important. What's been your experience with those personalities?
There's a very biblical basis for it. It's called weeping and gnashing of teeth. And that's what some couples come into it as. I'm not speaking from personal experience whatsoever in that, though I'm the one that usually does the weeping and the gnashing of teeth. So, my wife just sits there and lets me do it. Anyway, so I think the biggest thing with, and free spirit, nerd, there are other terms. It just is the body of thought that you get the term coming from. That, like you said, the nerd is one that tends to not spend money. As we've talked before, could veer towards a hoarder. And then you have the free spirit that, 45 cents, I think I'm going to a concert. So, if there's money, it's going to be spent. It's probably the same person that says, outdated term, how can I not have money? I still have checks left. So for all of you under 40, those are those things that are paper that you sign. You have to fill
That would
out
be
a
like
bunch
under
of blanks.
25. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So anyway, for the 7 people in the world that still, according to one philosopher on LinkedIn, there's 7 people that still write them, including the U.S. government, and that's a whole nother fraud topic. But anyway, yeah, the nerd and the free spirit have to figure out how to get along if they're going to make a marriage work. And yeah, this is where I get into trouble, because my wife's going to stand over here with her arms crossed and just smirk at me, either now or when she hears what we're talking about. So I think something that we've talked about in the past is how much of it is communication, how much of it is truly the weeping and gnashing of teeth piece is realizing which one you are and going, oh, I didn't realize I was that much that way. And I think one of the things that we have, or what I thought about prior to the conversation, was the control issue around it, where, we've talked about with our budgeting, we each had our own budgets, trying to combine them and move forward towards a single budget. And that has been difficult because we both have done it our own way for so long. And we can be a free spirit in certain areas, or we can be a nerd in other areas. Though my wife tends to be much more of the nerd in all areas, and I tend to be much more of the free spirit in all the areas. So I think the big piece is realizing where you are on the spectrum, and then being able to communicate it and communicate about it after you come to that realization. Because sometimes that takes a little bit of time to figure out.
And it's interesting because, as you and I have talked on multiple episodes throughout this show, money management does require budgeting, does require numbers and math and emotional, behavior management. But none of that is possible without the communication piece. That's what starts everything, because if you can't communicate about money, you can't manage money, you can't talk about money. And I think that is, like you said, that is where this dynamic can be a really strong suit to aid a relationship, or it can be the curse and the crippling conflict, because you don't know how to get over it. Because a nerd and a free spirit, they talk differently, they think differently, they react differently, even if they both want the same thing. And this is what I tell couples all the time in coaching is, communication can be difficult if you don't know how to understand each other. Because majority of the time, husband and wife want the exact same thing. But if they can't communicate how they feel and what they desire, then they can never find that mutual agreement and understanding around what they want. And I think that is what causes, as you said, the weeping and gnashing of teeth in this dynamic, is if we don't know how to understand and communicate our tendencies of being a nerd or a free spirit, being a spender or a saver, then that causes continual conflict and clash and frustration and aggravation, lack of trust, lack of respect. The list goes on, because it just keeps going layers and layers deep whenever you aren't able to identify and analyze that. One thing that I have noticed is there are, I'll use the word tendencies again, to be one side or the other, but I have yet to meet someone who is only a nerd and someone who is only a free spirit. Have you?
I think people tend to lean one way or the other, but no,
Right.
not completely. I would say there are probably some that tend to be, I find more people that are the free spirit than they are the nerd.
And Yeah, I would agree because it almost, I think a lot of it goes back to how you grew up.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
You know, what you were allowed to do, what you were taught to do, um, what was against the rules. Because I think a lot of times the free spirits, they have a more free and loose
Yeah.
background versus nerds are very structured oriented and you can do this but you can't do that. And I think that the biggest challenge that brings when you get into a marriage, as you talked about before, we bring a lot of our childhood experiences into our marriage relationship, and then you're an adult having to get over your your childlike experience with another adult, and depending upon how healthy you and the other adult are in your understanding of your child experiences, you may not act like adults, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, just go ahead and say it. How much of an
you may act
adult
like
you
those
really
kids
are.
again.
Yeah, and I think you hit pretty well with the experience piece of it. That it might even be what stood out to you as a kid.
Yeah.
You might have parents that were free spenders and you never saw that they ever had a care in the world, but behind closed doors they were really struggling. Or you had on the other side of it somebody that the parents might have been free spenders or weren't tight with their budget, but everything hurt. And the child's experience was seeing the parents fight about it, and they didn't want to bring that type of relationship forward, or they didn't want to be that way themselves, so they became more of a nerd. So it was more of a learned behavior based on the experiences they had growing up.
Yeah. And to that point, one of the things that most people don't realize, we refer to this concept as far as spending versus saving, but the actual personality of nerd versus free spirit is not even really tied to money. It's tied to how you view instruction and life choices and decision making and routine and structure. So oftentimes, everything else in life can indicate, are you a nerd or a free spirit? And those tendencies just come out in how you manage your money. Are you more likely to save or more likely to spend? But because it's not strictly money focused, I think it's really easy for people to get lost in the criticism and the lack of understanding. Because to them, a free spirit sees a nerd as someone who can't have fun in life, who is too, rule book following, who doesn't know how to just, enjoy. And a nerd looks at a free spirit and sees an irresponsible person who, can't follow instruction. Well, that can be seen in so many different areas of life, and where the conflict comes from, because a lot of times we don't necessarily get aggravated at our spouse. I mean, we have differences. Yeah, okay. Well, my spouse, they don't like to make the decision, so I have to make the decision, for them, around something like that, or he's a stick in the mud. We like to go out and have fun. You don't necessarily get aggravated at that. You just kind of learn to accept it and live with it. But whenever you throw money into the picture, all of a sudden you start judging your spouse and critiquing them and expecting something out of them because that's how you are. And I think that is where we see a lot of the conflict and the tension and just the misunderstanding is these are natural relationships with life and with just how we are personally. But you put money in the equation and then it becomes personal. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I think as we talk about the nerd and the free spirit, I can tell you that I'm a nerdy free spirit because I've got the spreadsheets, I structure it. but I can push something to the next month, and I can, figure it out through an Excel spreadsheet to do something. Free spirit is a very good term for the person that is the one that spends the money. I don't think nerd is necessarily the right term for the person that doesn't spend money.
Yeah.
I think it's something more that tends to be a part of the body and retentive. If I don't say the full term, it's part of the body, and you get a little uptight about things. That's pinch pennies, stuff like that. That's not exactly nerdy. That's more of a, like you said, stick in the mud type deal. When you talk about putting money with the personality type, that has been one of the primary reasons that I have struggled with doing a one-piece budget with my wife, is because, like I said, I tend to be the free spirit nerd, that I can make it work on mine. But my wife being on the side of being more of a spendthrift, I don't have to worry about how much she spends. I know she's not going to overspend. I, on the other hand, will overspend and will overcompensate for that, or try to compensate for it in the following month. We can go back to the unaccounted purchases conversation we've had before about that one continuing to be an issue. But yeah, you throw the money in there and you've got two people that are trying to make it work, and the communication piece is the biggest piece of it, in where they're going to come together to have the come to Jesus, or having an understanding of, this is where we are, this is where we need to be, and this is how we need to go forward. And at the point that we get off track, this is what we need to do to get back on track. So one of the things that we've talked about with money before is money just makes you more of who you already are. Or you get to see, adding money to an equation doesn't change anything other than you becoming a larger version of what you already are.
Right. I forgot where I was going to go from that, because that was a really good just synopsis. To your point of nerd not being a good term, because even I am you said you were a nerdy free spirit. Is that how you called yourself?
Yeah, I've got the spreadsheets to back up how I spent the money and where the money goes, and how I put it in buckets, or do this or that, and rob Peter to pay Paul the next time around when I need to.
So yeah, I'm similar in type and kind. I'm probably a little bit more. Well, I am more on the nerd spectrum than the free spirit, because of my attention to the financial detail. Not because I'm a stick in the mud, because I can assure you, I like to have fun.
Yes, you are. Yeah. Cheapy at a concert.
It was a fun concert.
I bet it was.
Folks, I did not actually go to a 45-cent concert, just so you know.
The sad part is that you're clarifying that.
Well, you make it sound like it actually happened. So I want to be perfectly honest and transparent here. But I like to have fun. I like to do things. I like to experience. I do not like, my wife will tell you, I do not like to just sit at home and I like to go and do and be. I like to enjoy life. But when it comes to the financial details, I am on it. I know down to the dollar, down to the penny, and I know where everything's going and how it's going to get there. And if it doesn't get there, I know why it didn't get there. So I have those, I'm the nerdy free spirit, because I have a combination of both of those. And so to your point of the nerd not being a good word, I kind of want to give some definition to educate folks here. So, to my knowledge, these terms, or at least I first heard them in Dave Ramsey's FPU class. I don't know if there's other experts out there that use the same terminology, but the concept would be that the nerd was the money person, and this free spirit could care less. So the nerd had the spreadsheets and the calculators and the formulas and the Excel sheets, and he or she knew exactly every penny, every dollar, and if you spent 50 cents more than that, you were out of line. The free spirit was like, what's the budget? They didn't care where the money came from or where it went, as long as they were having fun and living a good life, all was fine and dandy. And those are the extremes. And within these dynamics, you can have those extremes, and typically those extremes are not going to be married together. If they are, don't know how it's going to happen or work, because that's just not going to last.
They won't be that way for a long way. Yeah,
exactly.
They won't be that way for very long.
But we typically don't realize that until we get married. And that's what makes this whole dynamic such a challenge, but also such a very important piece of the puzzle. So, to better clarify the definitions that we use here, and just help people to be able to grasp this if they've never heard of this before, or if they're trying to figure, okay, well, that sounds like something I've experienced, but I don't really know how it applies or how to deal with it, how to manage it. So, whenever we say nerd, we're just talking about someone who is intentional, who is planned, who is prepared, who is organized, who likes to be in control, likes to have routine, likes to have, have their ducks in a row. To any extent, they like to be organized at some level and have a plan, so they at least know what's going to happen tomorrow. The free spirit is someone who lives for today. Who does not care about the details, does not care about the plan, does not care about the routine, the structure. They care about the experience and the fun and the opportunity to be in control of themselves and not be controlled by something. That's kind of the ultimate core personality and dynamic of this. So thank you for throwing that out, Bob, because that kind of opened the door for me to say, okay, this is really the people that we're talking about. We're not talking about those, pocket protector glass high schoolers. We're talking about someone who just knows how to manage.
I think
likes
that's
to be in control.
Yeah, I think that's the image that they want to portray, is somebody that's very buttoned up and by the numbers, versus somebody that is the opposite end of the spectrum. And I think you did a very good job of identifying both of those, and then the point of it being that people are not one extreme or the other, and can cross in some shape or form.
And like you said, we are both testament to this. I have yet to find a couple that has one only nerd and one only free spirit. There is always a combination of the two, and that is what makes it work. Because if you do have an only nerd and only free spirit, you're at those extreme levels. So you're going to have a man and woman that are combined. Statistically, I have yet to find a couple that both of them share the same ratio, meaning one will be more of a free spirit and one will be more of a nerd. And that's why they typically, we say the opposites attract. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but the dynamic of that relationship will work because there is contrast and yet balance. Now, if you take someone that is, they're both more on the free spirit spectrum, not to say that that's not going to work, and vice versa, not to say that two people are not going to work that are more on the nerd spectrum, but I don't see that happening near as much as I see one being more nerdy, one being more free-spirited, but yet both of them have both tendencies, and that's what makes it a good balance.
The word you're not using is tension. And that that is where all of this in couples managing finances really hits. Is you've got the different personalities, and two free spirits are not going to get very far. Right. Two nerds, from a financial standpoint, will do much better. They might not have much fun, but if you have two people that are...
They won't go anywhere.
Yeah.
They'll sit home and collect china.
They might clean China or dust the China. They won't get more China. And the China will have been given to them, gifted to them at some point, but I digress. So, if you have, and that's where we want to focus, is these two competing personalities, where they are on the spectrum. Two people leaning one way or the other. If you would tend to lean more towards structure and knowing where the money goes and what it needs to pay for, versus two people that have the credit cards that everything goes on it and they pay the minimum and they haven't maxed out all 16 cards yet, that they'll never get another one. They don't even know what
the balance is.
That's right. Have no idea what the balance is until something gets declined or somebody calls and says, yeah, we're revoking your credit on this one. Mm-hmm. But we're speaking specifically to the people that are somewhere in the spectrum on either side of the middle. And you're not going to have somebody in the middle. If you have two people in the middle, that, God bless you.
I've never seen that. Yeah. You're going to be able to you won't be able to make any decisions.
Oh yeah, I think you would be able to make many of the decisions easily because you're in that middle ground, and you might have to do some give and take. But then again, you're at that communication of how much and how often,
right?
Versus,
well, but point being, there won't be any tendency one way or the other. Like,
right.
Okay, well, everything could work, right?
Yeah. God bless you again if that's your situation. For the rest of us, somewhere else that aren't Austin, that have one on either side and have the money, but have a lot of places they can put it for the experience or for the future. And I like how you said that, you've got the nerd who can look to tomorrow or a decade from now, and you've got the free spirit that can't look past their nose. So just what's at the end of their nose and not what's on the end of the calendar week. So, yeah, I think the biggest piece with this episode was basically identifying who the types are or what the types are, and realizing that there is a spectrum. And I'm hijacking the show at this point because that's really where we've gotten to in the conversation, whether that's really what Austin wanted to do or not. But for the people that haven't had this typology, I don't know if that's the right word, but
terminology,
the idea that you have one person that is more structured and you have one person that, we say free spirit and nerd, I think of spendthrift, spends nothing, and free spender that, ooh, look, a dime, what can we spend it on?
Yeah.
That idea and how to get the two to work together, and realizing it is not easy. Weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Yep. And it ultimately, it all goes back to what you said 20 minutes ago, that in order to manage through this, it's a communication piece. That's what I work on with couples every single time, is how do we learn how to understand the other person? Because we're in this spot where there will be friction, there will be hesitancy, there will be maybe even a little bit of frustration whenever you're first trying to figure out how do I feel like my spouse hears me? Because a big component of this starting out is because you're going to think about it and you're going to talk about it differently, your spouse is going to sound like they either don't know or don't care. That's what it's going to come across as. And that's why, going back, this is one of the big things that I work with couples. So that's why I keep referencing back to the coaching program, because this is a component. And Bob, I know that you experience this with your couples too. If couples cannot learn how to handle this dynamic, they will not be able to manage their money very well together.
No, and you made the comment that when they're first starting out, I think we've talked about previously that starting out could be a few weeks. It could also be a few years. And I think one of the things of having a coach involved is, when you have two adults that don't necessarily want to be adults or aren't at the level of being fully capable of being adults, you come to a realization in situations where it can be either a paradigm shift or a realization just in and of itself to go, oh, so this is how I look at it and this is how you look at it, and oh, I might be wrong in how I look at this. Mm-hmm. Not speaking from experience or anything, but having the whole perspective of, I get what you're saying, I disagree wholeheartedly with you, or I finally get what you're saying, and yeah, you're probably right, or and in that aspect of it, saying yeah, you're probably right, taking a few weeks to sit on it. Mm-hmm. Or you're absolutely wrong, moving to you might be right, to okay, you might have a point, to yeah, you're right. That could take months.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you might find that as soon as you get to one of those situations, you will have another situation similar or completely different, but be on the same track that it might be the other way around. Mm-hmm. That as a couple, you've got to work at it both ways. That on the first one, yeah, you're completely wrong on this. The second one, yeah, I'm completely wrong on this. And figuring out how to work that together, which, again, is the communication piece and the adulting piece of realizing the maturity of it to say, yeah, neither one of us is either completely right or completely wrong, or I really was wrong and you really were right, and I'm sorry about that it took me 20 years to get to this point.
That's not speaking from experience.
That's not speaking from experience.
Well, and one thing that I also want to point out, many times, so I've got an entire thing that I take couples through that we look at. It's an evaluation, and then we talk about the results and kind of give them pointers on which one actually are you, what are your tendencies, how can you understand yourself better, how can you talk to your spouse better, because it's each person has to work on it themselves in order for the couple to have success together. And every single time when we go into that session and I start talking about what a nerd and free spirit is, you start seeing little smirks and little winks and little nudges and little things, because they think they already know what each other is. But as soon as we go through the evaluation, they start to realize, oh, I actually have some of those tendencies. Oh, yeah, that is you in a good way. Or they will joke about themselves in a bad way. And it's like, well, yeah, I know I do that. But the realization of that opens up this door to be like, oh, dang, okay, we both have things that we are good at and that we're bad at and that we need to work on and that we can do well at. But there is the connotation going in of, well, he don't like to talk about money and she doesn't like to have fun and, whatnot. So it's always humorous to see a couple when they first hear and see this concept, they think they've got it pegged, and then they realize, oh, that's not fully the way that it is.
Yeah.
So I want to throw that out there, because you can listen to this episode and think, well, yeah, I'm the free spirit, my husband's the nerd, or vice versa. You're only partially correct.
And the other piece of that is you've got to define what fun is, because fun for one person could be no fun for the other person.
Yes, absolutely.
And you make it sound like it's a walk in the park to go through this and it's a whole lot of fun. And sometimes it's not a whole lot of fun, because you get to see some rough edges on people that they don't want to admit to, or it sparks conversations later that aren't so fun to have. Now, I think a lot of this conversation we're having, somebody could listen and be absolutely discouraged by it. And I want to say to them, sorry. But at the same time, the encouragement is it's part of the process that you have to get through to become better as a couple, and we almost sound like counseling therapists than we do people that talk about money. Because, again, the money only amplifies who you are as a person, with it or without it. So the communication piece and understanding the other person is the hard part. And again, my wife should be here, arms crossed and smirking at me, or
She probably is. You just can't see her.
she is. She'll come back and listen to this and smirk and wink and nod and elbow and whatever else. And she'll walk across the room and I'll be like, "What's so funny?" She goes, "Oh, I'm just listening to you and Austin." I go, yeah, I know.
Well, the other thing that I just, as we kind of, wrap up our conversation a little bit, I do want to leave folks with some points and some action steps of, how you can take this understanding and this knowledge and apply it to your marriage from the basic standpoint. Obviously, we work through this in depth in coaching, but I think it's really valuable if folks know how they can balance spending and saving and attitude to money, attitude to each other within this. So Bob, if you have anything that you want to contribute to there, but the things that come to mind for me are, number one, I think that couples should realize that their spouse has tendencies that will balance them. And that identifying what those tendencies are helps make the money management as a couple flow smoother. So, just because your spouse doesn't talk or think about money the exact same way they do, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that you haven't found the understanding between you and your spouse of what they mean, how they feel, and what that brings to the overall equation. And on the flip side of that, there are tendencies that might need to be fixed. But understanding that you both have strengths and you both have weaknesses within this, I think is really important to embracing the concept and being encouraged, okay, how do we understand each other better? Because the nerd needs to be willing to have a little bit of fun, and the free spirit needs to respect the nerd's guiding and leading and
Restraining.
Restrain, yeah. Because if the nerd refuses to do anything out of the norm, they are a stick in the mud and they're going to drag their partner down. And if the free spirit does not lean in and support and respect the leading and the guiding and the planning of the nerd, then they're going to cause a shipwreck one day because they're going to disrail and dismantle the structure that the nerd has created. So identifying where those pieces fall into your relationship, I think, is really important, and acknowledging that, hey, I'm not good at this, but my spouse is, and that's why we're good together, and I need to work on this. But my spouse is awesome over here, and vice versa, right? Seeing the good and the bad both. The other thing that I want folks to think about is it's good to be a free-spirited nerd. And it's good to be a nerdy free spirit. Because each one of those people adds to a balanced overall relationship. So figuring out what your limits are is the big important piece here, because your free spirit can only drag your nerd along so far until it's not smart, and your nerd can only restrain the free spirit enough until it's too restricting. So finding those limits within each end of that spectrum is very critical to making this overall a balanced piece.
Yeah, the more that one pulls one way or the other, the more stress the other gets in the dynamic. And you mentioned that your spouse is not wrong. Yeah, your spouse can be wrong, but you're probably also wrong somewhere else.
Right.
And that's the aspect of learning where those differences and where those commonalities work. Two things that really hit me in wrapping this up are the idea that each person has to have patience with the other as they work through this, and it's going to take time. It's not a one and done. It's not a, okay, we're past this and we've got it figured out. There will be bumps along the way that you have to continue to work on until you get to a point where you are of the same mind in many areas. And again, there still will be give and take in spots. The other piece to that is if the other person's wrong or you're wrong, there needs to be the idea that aside from having grace, giving grace to that other person is assuming that that other person wants the best for you in how they're communicating and how they handle money, and that they're not necessarily trying to be selfish or they're out to get you, but there is a reason that they are acting or spending the way that they do in your relationship that is to benefit of both, and not necessarily to the detriment of one. That can happen, and that's a whole nother thing. Right. But just the whole idea is, as you're working through this, you're both working for the best of each other and not to the detriment of one over the other.
Yes, very well said. It's honestly a complex dynamic of money management. And Bob, as you have attested, it's not something that you're going to figure out in one coaching session, in 1 month, in 1 year of marriage. It's something that you will have to continually be mindful of, because there will be situations, and I tell this to couples in my program all the time, you're going to run into conversations. Even after you go through my program, even after you learn everything that I teach you, even after you feel confident and comfortable with your financial management, you're going to run into instances where everything that you know is tested, and you have to be strong enough and resilient enough to do it together and to work through that situation, because you know what to do. You just got to do it. So even though you understand and know and believe, doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. But you at least have the tools and the knowledge to get through it and to come out on the other side in unison and agreeance, and hopefully, financially better off. We hope that we don't go backwards in our financial journey through those hard times. But you're going to have the conversations that are difficult. You're going to have the decisions that are difficult. You're going to have the situations that make you go, man, this is hard. That's just part of money and marriage. But understanding what you need to do as a couple together to handle that and to work through it and to be prepared, that is the piece that will set you apart from the other couples that keep fighting over money even after they've been married for 25, 30, 40 years, because they don't understand each other. They don't know how to talk about, how to communicate, how to feel it. You do. So that's the thing that I kind of want to encourage folks with. It isn't easy, but when you have these pieces in place, you're a lot better off, a lot more prepared.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add?
Oh, I think you buttoned it up pretty good there.
Snug as a bug in a rug.
Something to that effect, yes.
Well, Bob, you came out on the other side. I think I have calmed your nerves some, I hope.
Well, I think there's more to come based on the conversations that we've had, and that's
okay.
We haven't aired this yet as of our speaking, and my wife has not walked in with her arms crossed and a rolling pin or anything else to knock me across the head. So
all's good.
Well, we'll see how that goes.
All right, folks, we'll see you next time on The Heart of Money. Hey, folks, did you find today's episode valuable? If so, I would truly appreciate it if you left a 5-star review and shared the episode with a friend. My goal is to help as many couples as possible in their journey to gaining complete control of their money. Also, I have a free gift that I want to share with you for taking the time to listen to today's show. I have a brand new video training that outlines 5 steps for making a budget that will give you true financial freedom. In this training, I share how you can create a budget in a matter of minutes and make it easy to implement. Who doesn't want that, right? You'll learn what categories you need to cover all the bases each month and how to protect yourself against financial stress. You can access your free gift at freedommoneycoach.com/budget guide. That's freedommoneycoach.com/budget guide.